Good morning, everyone, and welcome to meeting of the Badenoch and Strathspey Area Committee, Kingussie Courthouse, on the 10th of February. We have a full complement of members, and I don't think we have any apologies for absence. Do we have any declarations of interest, members? No, not declarations of interest. We're going to slightly rejig the agenda. So the first item will be item 4, which is the Area Roads Capital Programme. And to introduce that is Stephen Grant. Good morning, Stevie. You're on mute now, Steve.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm presenting the Area Capital Programme for roads for in the year 2025-26. We extensively discussed this at the ward business meetings. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Really, is really as in the report placed in front of you. It amounts to a total of about £900,000. There's an element of surface dressing in it. Two jobs really, to be precise. We've put in a sum of £25,000 for footpath reconstruction and resurfacing, which I think is badly needed throughout the Highlands. We've got some £75,000 in for major patching, and the rest of the roads are the ones contained in green in the report are the ones that we are intending to do. The ones below it and in white are almost a kind of I don't like the word wish list, but basically it's a sort of an order of the other jobs that need to be done, and hopefully if we do manage to make savings or we do have any other capital, then we can actually get to them. It is a snapshot in time. We're sitting here in the sort of approaching the middle of February. There's still a little bit of winter to come, I suspect, and roads can deteriorate very, very fast. If that does change and we have to add in or remove or change about things that are not within the programme, we'll come back to members to discuss that with them. Happy to take any questions on it.
Okay, thank you, Stevie. Councillor Lawman.
Stevie, on your list is the B9152 from Grampian View to the Old Mill Road Junction. Actually, from the I suppose from the traffic lights on Grampian Road to Achontool, the road's crumbling. The left-hand side of the road as you're heading north, people are now beginning to avoid it and pull past the white line because the road is actually falling apart. So really, someone needs to look at that really seriously, very quickly, because this is probably the busiest council road in Badenoch and Strathspey, and it's not going to get any better.
Thank you for that. It's something that I've got Craig onto it right away. It is something probably needing a bit of urgent attention. We'll hopefully try and deal with that out of this year's money that we still spend. We also have major patching budget that we can actually take from that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Coburn?
No.
That's the one, Stevie. Just you're on about roads deteriorating there. I've had 2 or 3 reports recently about West Terrace and Kingussie. I think I'd mentioned it maybe to you before. Last week I got 2 or 3 emails about it breaking up, but I don't know if it's possible for anyone to have a look at that to see if it's become an urgent job or not. That would be for engineers to decide if anyone's possible to have a look at that.
Yeah, we'll certainly have a look at it now. If there is any changes to be made, or hopefully we can manage to actually catch it this year. And if there are any changes, we'll note that in members.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coburn, you have a question.
Thank you, Stephen. Just for my memory, could you just clarify the extent of the work up at the Bridge of Brown, because that's quite a sizable chunk of the budget.
Yeah, I mean, the Bridge of Brown Road is needing a good bit of work in it, and we are really what represents there is the remainder of it. We've had a couple of stabs over the last couple of years. We really want to turn around and just improve that road to actually to allow us to actually go in later on and surface dress it. So we are conscious of the fact that we are in the middle of the extra capital funding. Next year we should get pretty much maintained budgets. The year after that we don't know what's happening, so it's important that we actually manage to actually address these issues while we have money.
Just on the back of that, is there any access, because in the past there was discussion about local estate contributions. There's also the timber transport as well. Are we able to tap into any of those resources?
As far as I know, the timber, the Scottish Government, there's not really money forthcoming for timber transport fund. It's very, very limited. I always try and investigate areas where we can actually get money to complement the money that we put in, and we will continue to do that. But it's funny, timber transport is a great resource, but it's like every other bit of Scottish Government funding. It's dwindling, so we will continue to do that as and where we can get it.
Thank you.
Steve, I just have one last thing which that prompted me there when you talked about the timber transport. Had a report from Kingussie Community Council and also another member of the public about timber lorries coming in the B970 and the Spey Bridge, which was laid down there a couple of years ago, which is up and out been a great success, and the circus has held together really well. But apparently, timber lorries have been crossing that in convoy. Is there any way that we can contact them to ask them not to happen? Because obviously we don't want the bridge to be damaged again.
Yeah, we'll go on to that. And we have had last summer. We did have a few of the timber companies not playing by the rules, shall we say? And we shall call them on that again, sort of thing. So the problem is a case of catching them, but we will get them in and speak to them on that.
Excellent, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions?
No.
Stevie, thank you very much for your report. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Chair, just to let you know, we have all speakers now available on screen.
He's in
Please.
Okay, well, we'll go back to the police then. We'll go back to the
It's entirely up to yourself, Chair.
You're the boss.
in order now.
Yeah, you're the boss.
Yeah, in order, so. We'll go back to item 3 on the agenda. This is the police performance report. With an apology from Chief Inspector Allen, but I believe that Inspector McCartney is here this morning. Good morning, Inspector.
Yes, good morning, Chair and Board. First of all, please accept my personal apologies for my lateness. I am now onto my third computer where I've managed to get onto Teams, so apologies. If it wasn't a Monday morning, what else would it be? And likewise,
Thank you for joining us. No problem.
no problem. And Chief Inspector Allen does send her apologies. Something last minute has come up. So yes, I'll be presenting on her behalf. I hope you have all got a copy of the Badenoch and Strathspey Area Command report. The reporting period is from the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of December 2024. And the information which is present covers the whole of the South Highland area. So CI Allen meets daily with the local area inspectors, including myself. I am based in Lochaber and form part of 2 other inspectors, Craig Johnson, who you'll all know from the Badenoch, Strathspey and Nairn, and Ali Mackenzie from the Skye area. And we're currently working on our next areas of focus for the year ahead. During the 2024 calendar year, there were 9 road deaths in South Highland, 1 motorcyclist, 2 pedestrians, 3 car drivers and 3 passengers. We work with our colleagues in road policing, particularly around the A96. Our joint focus on road safety is reflected in the increase in detected drug and drink drivers, which will continue to be a priority area for enforcement. We work with our partners in education to try keep our young people safe in the digital world, which makes up a significant part of their day-to-day lives. Chief Inspector Allen still remains concerned that with the confidence of youth, that they don't always follow the advice and sometimes find it difficult to step away from harmful chats and groups for fear of ridicule or ostracisation. There are broad reductions in the acquisitive crime area. The exception in these figures would be housebreaking, which is obviously an area of concern. The numbers relating to Badenoch and Strathspey primarily relate to early 2024. In relation to the protection of vulnerable people, and specifically hate crime and domestic abuse, there has been a change in the source of the information that is presented, and that is why there is no comparison provided. My view, or sorry, Chief Inspector Allen's view, is that the figures are broadly consistent with what we are experiencing. There is clearly a significant increase in the reporting of rape, part of which may be attributed to the greater willingness to report these crimes. A very small number of these crimes recorded in this report actually took place in the Badenoch and Strathspey area. Hate crimes and domestic abuse are both tracked closely by our local teams to ensure that no opportunities are missed in respect of protecting victims and bringing offenders to justice. Although there is a small decrease in the number of missing persons inquiries, these are still a significant part of our work, with some extremely protracted and complex cases which impact, without a doubt, in the South Highland area significantly. We're extremely well supported by our partners in responding to these incidents. We've had significant success in the wider division in disrupting county lines activity, and whilst that is mainly focused on the Inverness area, and we want to make sure that any part of the Highlands is a really challenging place for these groups to attempt to operate, we are working through an active period of enforcement across South Highland, from intelligence relating to drug supply. And whilst we work on developing that information, we are always looking to supplement that with information from the communities most impacted. So that is certainly the end of my brief, and I'll open it up to questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Inspector. Any questions, members? Councillor Colbert.
Thank you, and thank you, Ross, for stepping into the breach. I really like the layout of the report. The clarity is helpful. But anyway, we know that the drunk and drug driving. Do you differentiate between solely drug driving, people stopped with drug offences, or are they usually linked? Are they always drink and drugs? Is what I'm trying to say, or are they two separate counting mechanisms in your data collection? And the other thing was, sorry, two questions, and thanks for your forbearance, Chair. The sexual offences, I think it's really important to see the range and depth that we are recording, and thanks to the diligence of the teams for doing that. You mentioned that we've got, your teams are getting support, but are we getting equitable support in Badenoch and Strathspey?
Thank you, Councillor, for the questions, and also for highlighting the layout of the report and that it's acceptable, so appreciate that. Drink and drug driving. In this report, you'll see that the figures are classed as one lot of figures. However, I suppose what I would highlight is, more often than not, we're either stopping people who are one or the other. I think I don't want to say rare to have somebody who is both under influence of alcohol and drugs. However, we tend to find that they are or the other, especially around the drug driving offences, because it's only fairly recently that this technology has come into play and use for the police. We are obviously determined to use that as efficiently as possible to detect as many of these drug drivers as possible. And on to the sexual offences, so I can confirm that we are getting equitable access. There are representatives of the specialist departments that deal with sexual offences in various posts around the Highlands and Islands. So I can advise that we are getting equitable access.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector. Councillor Lowe.
There's a couple of things. Inspector, basically, I suppose the attendance at community council meetings by police officers is very patchy. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think we should expect police officers to attend every community council meeting. I don't think it's required. But what would be helpful is just a very quick handwritten report given to each community council telling them what's going on in their area. Some community councils get a police officer every single meeting, and some I haven't seen in 5 years. But really, they don't need to be there. But I think it's helpful if the community knows what's going on. My second point is about speeding in our towns and villages, and I appreciate that it's not within your control, but I think the idea that we should not be enforcing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits is just ridiculous. And if you could pass that up the line yet again, I do appreciate that it's not something within your control. This is something that's been decided upon nationally, wrongly, in my opinion. But we'll just leave it at that. Cheers.
No, thank you very much, sir. I suppose, first and foremost, the attendance at the community council meetings, and I think you're absolutely right. We do strive continuously to get continuity across the board, and as was referred to in the previous subject there, equitable access for all to the police and vice versa. So what we do have is we do have a list of identified officers for each community council area, and what I will do is I'll take away an action from this meeting to refresh that list, particularly for the Badenoch and Strathspey area, to make sure that community council chairs are fully aware of their liaison officer. Should community councils not be receiving the input, and I suppose the caveat around this, as you've already kind of alluded to, is as much as we can make a commitment. I've been there myself. I'll be at the community council meeting tonight at 7, and at 5 to 7 you're awaiting an emergency call, and it's almost impossible to try and get somebody to step into your shoes at such short notice. But I agree with your assessment of it, that at the very least a wee line via email or whatever it may be on the run up to a community council meeting, so that we're all cited on issues, and the community councils can get a debrief. So yeah, I'll take that away just to make sure that we are doing what we need to be in that area. And again, if community council chairs feel that they have not heard from a police officer in 5 years, please flag it to the local area inspector, and we can look into that. The speeding, sorry, Chair, it was just to say the speeding I shall take away and escalate again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector. Just to actually, pretty similar things written down here. So, but just to follow up on the attendance at community councils, Inspector Johnson has actually done a fair bit of work on that, and he's been made aware that, and Badenoch and Strathspey, we have 12 community councils. There are 2 or 3 that get regular attendance from officers who possibly live in that community, and there are others who haven't actually had a visit from the liaison officer. They actually do know who they are usually, and they do get a report, but for the reasons that you say, it's very difficult sometimes, and we fully appreciate that with, if they're called to other things. But we have also asked, is it possible even if they could meet the chair of the community council at a different time, at a time that suited them or whatever, just to put a name to a face, because literally in some places they haven't seen them at all, although they will get a report. So it was just to kind of make that connection, if that's possible. But we fully appreciate how difficult it is with staffing levels, etc. So, and yeah, also to back up my colleague, Councillor Loban, on the speeding. That's one of the main things that we hear is about the enforcement of the 20 mile an hour speeding in our communities, speed limits. So, unless there's any other questions for Inspector McCartney, just like to thank you very much for stepping in at the last minute, and thank you for seeing you here today, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Chair.
Ross. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Bye bye. So moving on to item 5 on the agenda, which is Education Associated School Group Report. And I think I saw Annika Jansen there. Yes, good morning, Annika. How are you?
Good morning, members, and apologies for my voice. Hopefully you can listen through. I know I'm here instead of Fiona. Fiona's away today, but I don't know much better with this voice, but I'm here to present 2 papers. I was going to say that I didn't have a good weekend.
Don't strain your voice, Annika, and
I know.
in your own time.
I'll struggle through it. You got the paper in front of you, and as you can see, I'm here to give an update on the Grantown Grammar and Kingussie High School of the ASGs. And I'm here primarily for the primary sector today. The secondary data we're still waiting for from Scottish Government and should be with us within a couple of weeks, hopefully. So we'll come back, share you on that at a later date. But the data is the ASL data for 23-24, and I'm going to start with the grammar, Grantown Grammar schools first. Okay, you can see the size of schools in the paper. So the area serves 421 pupils in primary, 46 children on top of that in ELC settings, and the secondary has 352 young pupils in the school, and that's of September 24. I'm asking you to have a look at the report around the ASL data. In terms of the schools for the integrated grammar, it's a really positive picture. You can see how they rated themselves against the standards and quality reports in 24. There's only, I think it's 1 school that have not had an inspection over the last 5 years as well. And if you look at attendance figures, they actually have a higher attendance than national Highland average. And again, that goes back to 22-23. No exclusions recorded either in primary. The attainment, the shows they perform in line or above national average and Highland average in all areas of literacy and numeracy. Okay, this year you will note the smaller schools have no data because they're so small, and you might be able to identify individual kids amongst that as well. I do apologize, as I said, the data for secondary goes back to 22-23, but we're hoping to get the most up-to-date data within a couple of weeks. But even go back to 22-23, you can see they were actually achieving literacy and numeracy level 5. It was below virtual comparator. And for pupil destinations, they were higher than Highland and national average. You can also see the projected school rules in the appendix going forward. Now, I do apologize for my voice, as I said. I can move on to the next paper if you want to have questions at the end, or if you want to, I can move over to Kingussie ESG.
Move on and we'll take questions again.
Yeah, we'll just move on. Thanks, Annika. We'll do all the questions again. Thank you very much.
So again, the Kingussie ESG, you can see here as well all the overview data, primarily here for the primary data for 23-24, and again, this is a secondary, hopefully published in a couple of weeks. Again, the primary schools in the area have 442 pupils for primary. ELC settings have 79. I think it will be more now, but it was the September census, and the secondary serve a community of 384 young people. Again, I asking you to have a look and scrutinize and note the content of the report. Again, a lot of information, and maybe I should say with the Grantown one as well, if you have specific questions around the data, we're happy to bring the head teachers to one of your future meetings, that they can give a better overview and more context around the data too. Again, you can see the standards and quality report, how they rated themselves in June 24. And it's only one of the schools that have been inspected within the five last years by HMI. If you're looking at Kingussie ESG data for the primaries, the attendance figures, we're still waiting for the last year, but in 22-23, it was lower attendance than national Highland average. However, no exclusion recorded. The attainment overview for the primary shows the primary schools within the ASG perform in line or below national Highland average, and that was in both literacy and numeracy. And again, the smaller schools, we do not share the data due to confidentiality of the individual kids. Okay, School leaving data for secondary 22-23, they were below the virtual comparator literacy, but they were actually above in numeracy. Pupil destinations, and there you can see as well, it was above Highland and national average. And again, you can see the projected school roles. So it's a bit of mixture between the two ESGs. What I would like to point out, we have officers working with the schools. We've done now for a while. So we are working very closely around the fuller context of the schools in terms of raising the attainment for all. And as you know, you will be fully aware of the context of your schools as well, because it's in your area. But it's an ongoing drive of raising the attainment, but obviously supporting in all areas to be able to achieve that too. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Annika. Thank you for the report. Do we have any questions, members? Councillor Lovan?
It's not really so much a question. It's we've got some concerns about the, I suppose, the school roll forecasts in both schools.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at it currently, as far as the figures are concerned, you have 781 pupils between both schools, and in 10 years' time, that will have dropped theoretically to 571, which is a 27% reduction in the number of pupils in the school. Now, maybe I'm going to be a wee bit controversial here, but in the end, really, if you're looking at these changes over a 10-year period, should Highland Council be thinking about closing both of these elderly ageing schools and building another one that's more suitable for the number of pupils that we can expect? That's maybe not something that you can answer, Annika.
Yeah, thank you. You kind of answered your own question. It's probably not for me to answer that, but I think there's a national trend and a Highland trend as well, that our numbers will go down across the whole region, just to make you aware of that too.
Okay, Councillor Coburn?
Thank you, and Councillor Lovan has just asked one of my questions, but I'm really keen that we get the forecasting and the modelling of the school roles, because I think for our secondary schools, I think it's important to know what we can deliver educationally and how we can support the range of subjects that we can give going forward. And I do think we need to look at a 10-year plan of where our young people are being educated in. So I'll leave the school role, but it's really interesting, particularly our rural schools that are 3 or 4 miles from each other. We need to be working with the communities and locally at going forward of what's best for our young people. It was interesting, the layouts of the reports, and you know, I think we must be very careful of not stringing into operational, but the exclusions numbers are really positive. Am I making the correct assumption is because our schools are using restorative practice and all our heads are trained and facilitate that in their schools?
Yeah, the last resort we do, and I know these 2 ESGs is to exclude. It's often not an answer, you know, for the children to be excluded. But we remember as well, this is 23-24 data as well, going back. Yeah. But at the same time, schools should not hesitate when it's needed to exclude either. But that is a positive data. For us, it's a positive data that no exclusions have been done in the primary. Yes. But that also means, maybe I should add that as well, this also means when a child may be educated away from the school, is still seen as they're attending school, but in another place. So it doesn't mean that all children are always static in a school. They can be educated in other places too, just to kind of make that clear too.
Thank you. Thank you.
On that particular point, Annika, how many pupils are actually who should attend Kingussie High School or should attend Grantown Grammar School are actually swapped between the 2 schools? Does that make it has an impact on the figures?
You know, I haven't got the exact number. I can find out for you. I can find out police requests between the 2 schools. We do see when sometimes we can see them jumping unit as well. That's not just in this cluster. Sometimes they do jump between the schools, but I will find out. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bruce, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Bearing in mind what Councillor Logan said, should we not be considering the construction of a new school right now? Because I don't think the two existing schools are in particularly good, healthy form. The construction, the buildings themselves, Grantown and Kingussie, and maybe, you know, with the length of time these things seem to take, should we not be thinking about it now?
Obviously, your comments, I can take it back. Obviously, we have an estate strategy, so obviously I can take it back to our colleagues in the state, so kind of property as well. But as the Councillor Jones said as well, as a chair, I obviously as officer cannot answer that in this forum, but I can take it back to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. Councillor Coburn.
So just going back, is it appropriate that we have got some ailing buildings and we know that things are happening more with the change of climate, etc., etc. Could we get a facilities, estates facilities report added in to our education report so that we can see where our buildings and our, I don't know, it may need to be a separate report, but I think it would be helpful just to get a feel of our school estate.
That's a really good idea.
Yes, we do. And Chair, we do have an overview of our categories of our schools, where they're sitting in terms of building. So I would be happy to ask my colleagues to share that with you as well as a group.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment. I think obviously there will be other social and community issues to look at as well as the state of the buildings. You know, whether we were looking at rationalising the school estate. So that would be my comment at the moment. But that's for another day.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
we can discuss that at another time. But Annika, I don't think colleagues have any more questions, and thank you very much for coming on today. And thank you.
And I apologise again for my voice. You've been very patient with me.
You did a fantastic job, Annika. Thank you.
Thanks, Annika.
Okay, look after yourself. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
There are a number of kids that should go to Kingussie or sent to Grantown.
So moving on, we'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the Grantown and Strathspey Common Good Fund, and it's the revenue reserves update, and it's going to be presented by Lewis Hannah. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This report sets out the Grantown and Spey Common Good Fund revenue reserves and also presents a proposed budget for 2025-26. The report sets out the now position of the Grantown and Spey Common Good reserves for this current financial year as £910. And the proposed budget, which you'll see at Appendix 1, is a nil expenditure budget and proposes a modest income of £500. Members, you'll recall that the Grantown and Spey Square was reclassified as a Common Good Fund property and asset and was added to the Common Good Asset Register in 2022, which resulted in this Common Good Fund being reactivated. And the committee yourselves agreed on 6th of February 23 an invitation to pay scheme in respect of short-term election the square should be implemented to develop an income stream for the Common Good Fund at Grantown and Spey to allow it to grow, which would hopefully in time support good causes and community projects in Grantown and Spey. And as I said, that budget that's set out in Appendix 1 is intended to facilitate that. Like I say, there's no expenditure proposed in the budget. It's purely an income budget, and that income will be set aside. It will be in the Common Good Fund, and it will, like I say, hopefully in time grow to a level where we can use that Common Good Fund to support good causes, community projects, community events, things like that, for the benefit of Grantown and Spey. So I'm happy to take questions, Chair, on this paper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lewis. Councillor Orban.
I think that's really quite good, Lewis. You know, what we want to do is we want to see the Grantown Common Good Fund grow in the future. But I also need to point out that the Grantown Common Good Fund is not the property of Highland Council. that will be used exclusively for the benefit of the people of Grantown and Spey and not on council projects. And there is far too much nonsense being talked around as to what this common good fund is actually going to be used for. This is purely 100% for the benefit of the people of Grantown and Spey.
Thank you. Lewis, just on that, could you maybe highlight the sort of things that a common good fund could be used for by the Grantown and Spey community?
Yes, yeah, we've used, well, common good funds elsewhere can be used to give financial support to local charities and small community projects and community events. Really, we're probably some way away from having an events budget in the Grantown and Spey Common Good Fund. But what we would do is, if there was any proposals to use that money in time, those proposals would come to area committee for members to consider. And as Councillor Robin said, those would be projects that were for Grantown and Spey and Grantown and Spey alone, because it's the Grantown and Spey Common Good Fund. But really, because it's the Common Good Fund, provided any project or proposed spend in time was for the benefit of Grantown and Spey, then we could take it to committee for consideration by members. And then hopefully eventually we could get to the stage where we were maybe presenting a budget that had a budget line in there for events and festivals spend, or some other kind of community grants spend, and we develop criteria for that with members in due course. But we are a long way away from that, and I think we need to stress that we need time to build this income stream and set it aside in the Common Good Fund so that we're growing it for almost future generations, I think.
Okay, thank you, Lewis. That's very clear. Anyone else got any questions about this? Okay, thank you very much, Lewis. Moving on to item 7, which is word discussion of the budget. The committee is invited to note that the following word discussion refund application has been approved since the last committee: Newtonmore Community Council, Woodland and Development Trust, Wildflower Panels, Wildcat Trail, £1,500. And the remaining balance, the word discussion refund, is £7,610. But I think we will be discussing that at the ward meeting, which is the fall. So, but that's the current position.
That's it. Cheers. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. The minutes of the meeting, the media committee meeting on the 25th of November, we note the minutes. Okay, thank you.
Noted.
And I think that is the end of the agenda, and this leaves me to bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you very much, Dollar again.